I walked into All-Star Comics and Collectibles, shivering from the cool and cloudy January air. At least it wasn't raining. All-Star Comics is my favorite place to hang out, and I quickly glanced at the shelves for the new arrivals. According to the schedule, not only were my regular issues in, but also Comet Explorer Special Edition, issue number 100, and the 3 variant chrome covers. I'd been waiting for these for the last 2 months. I'm Neville, age 21, and a sophomore working on an English degree that I'm hoping could turn into a focus on creative writing. Everybody laughs at me, especially Dad, telling me it's silly to want to write comics. Let me tell you, Dad is full of wisdom. Note the sarcasm. There's no money in being a cheap author. You'll be broke. When are you going on a date? Yada, yada, yada. I always ignore him. Then Mom always tells me to put the comics down. She tells me I need to go out with real people and not read comics all the time. I roll my eyes and ignore her too. Mom and Dad don't understand me. I'm not buff. I'll never be a model. I'm incredibly awkward around people, and if I have to talk to somebody, I freeze, especially if they're a cute guy. Life is easier in the comics. Comet Explorer was the name of the orbital carrier a group of superheroes used to fight off the alien Gad and protect Earth from evil. It included such mighty heroes as Man Dynamo, Wraith the Silent Killer, Lady Jet, Bringer of the Dark, and a dozen others. Among the roster, they also included my favorite, Kid Condor, mystic master of the Condor style of karate, their token gay character. I know, you don't have to tell me. It's only ink on paper, but something about Kid Condor excites me. Not the way he lives in orbit, or the way everybody looks up to him. Though I wish somebody looked up to me. I would give anything to be like Kid Condor, because he can talk to anybody, and he has a boyfriend. He's not shy, and guys ask him out, or he asks them out. He's not afraid to be himself. I am. The big comic companies have a few gay or bisexual male characters. North Star of Alpha Flight and the X-Men was the first gay character to come out, and he has a husband now. Element Lad from the Legion has a complicated relationship with Sean. Shatterstar of X-Force shared the first comic book gay kiss with his teammate Richter. The young Avenger, Wiccan, is in love with the Hulkling. Negative Man from the Doom Patrol has both a wife and a male lover. Even the new Superman has a boyfriend. Times are changing, but Kid Condor is my favorite. Besides the fact the artist always drew him sexy, the reason I like Kid Condor is that he's just like me, mostly. A shy kid who used karate to open up to the world. My weird parents enrolled me in karate when I was 12 because they wanted me to learn to be social and gain a bit of self-confidence. Anyone else see the irony? Learn how to get along with others by learning to beat them up. Still, I am a brown belt, and I go to the dojo at least once a week. My weird parents even threw me a coming out surprise party when I was 16. I didn't know whether to be grateful or mortified. I've never had a serious boyfriend. The guys get to know me. We're together for a couple of months, and then they move on. Kid Condor has a steady boyfriend, though. But I'm too afraid and too boring to talk to anyone, especially if they're gay. What would I even say? Why would they want to talk to me? Ralph, the owner of All-Star Comics, always sets a few issues aside for me. So on my way to college, I stopped by and picked up my favorites. What surprised me, and I didn't expect, One of the variant chrome covers was a solo picture of Kid Condor. I bought extra of those. While I rode the bus, Mom texted, "Rebecca needs you to babysit this weekend." "Not again," I muttered to myself. Rebecca is my older, entitled sister. She's been married for 6 years, has a husband with a nice paying job, and together they have 3 kids, all girls. The oldest is 5.5, the youngest is 1. Out of the 35 or so weekends this year, I've been asked to babysit for 35 or so weekends this year. "Sorry, no can do. Have plans," I lied as I texted her back. Don't get me wrong, I love my nieces, but sometimes it would be nice to have a weekend to myself. I had 30 minutes before class, so I went to the Student Services building, bought a large coffee, took a seat in the quiet part of the cafeteria, and began reading. Kid Condor's boyfriend was feeling neglected because Kid Condor had been off on a special mission to save London, and he hadn't seen his love in weeks. Their reunion kiss was the most romantic thing I had ever seen. There was the 2 of them meeting in the middle of Paris for a weekend because Kid Condor had to return to London. They were locked in a desperate embrace and surrounded by roses shaped into a heart, with the Eiffel Tower in the background. I could imagine some street musicians playing some light French jazz, the delightful, bustling sounds of a French cafe, and the delicious aroma of a French bakery. Can't forget the coffee. France has Starbucks, right? In a little side panel, an old woman wearing a shawl sold flowers from the street corner. Kid Condor bought a rose for the man he loved. Someday, maybe on my honeymoon, I want to go to Paris and have my boyfriend give me flowers and we'd kiss in front of the Eiffel Tower. A noise disturbed my daydream. Suddenly, I was back in Vegas and in the cafeteria. There's this really good-looking guy named Chaz. He's the best-looking guy I've seen in a long time, and it wouldn't take much to develop a severe crush on him. I've never spoken to him, and no way he knows I'm alive. Some guy sitting at the same table as Chaz shoved his chair back and shouted, "I should break your nose." I couldn't hear the rest of what he said. Chaz held up his hands as if gesturing for peace. He smiled and said, "Calm down, Twitch. It's just sex." Fuming, Twitch slammed a tray on the table. He pulled his fist back and yelled, "So help me, I'm going to—" "Stop it, Twitch," a girl yelled and took hold of Twitch's arm as if to hold him back. "Chaz is not worth it." Twitch shook himself free of the girl and stormed up to Chaz. "So help me, you're a damned jerk." Oh no, Chaz was in trouble. Running as fast as I could, I placed myself between Twitch and Chaz. "Back down," I yelled to Twitch. "See what you've started, Twitch," the girl said. The girl had lost her balance and somehow fell at me. I deflected her fall and she grabbed the edge of the table. Twitch must have thought differently because he threw a light punch, but it didn't have much force behind it. I deflected it, then threw a quick jab into his solar plexus. It connected, but I toned down the blow. Surprised, Twitch stepped back. He crouched, ready to throw another punch. "Dude, it's not what it looks like," he yelled. Time to end this fight. I aimed a jab at his groin and shouted the kiai, the karate shout to focus energy and power. He deflected the jab with a downward elbow swipe, a move I knew. Twitch knew karate? He circled me and tried a rapid jab combo. I knew this move too, and the way to counter. With a quick downwards gesture similar to what he had used, I shifted his punches out of the way as I feinted to his left and struck him in his ribs. He grunted and said, "Nice moves." Twitch began a flurry of quick jabs, followed by a chop. I had learned this kata when I was a green belt. Had we studied the same type of karate? Did his sensei work with my sensei? I deflected his attacks and then threw a light punch that connected with his stomach. For good measure, I yelled the ki again and forced Twitch to step back. His eyes widened, an eyebrow twerked. Did he just smile at me? The people at the nearby tables grabbed their stuff and got out of the way. I was about to launch another attack when Twitch said, "Let's take this outside. More room." That was when I noticed all the people around us, watching us, filming us, shouting something. I ran to my table, grabbed my bag, safely putting the comics inside. The crowd led me and Twitch out to the open commons. And before I could set my bag down, Twitch swung around, leg up, and aimed a crescent kick at me. The man has nice, sexy legs, toned and muscled, with a light dusting of golden hair. I only had half a second to appreciate them. Crescent kicks are great on speed, can have the element of surprise, but often end up leaving the fighter unbalanced. I blocked, then deflected the kick, and with a little shove, Twitch lost his balance and fell on his back. He laughed? I treated this like a match and stepped back, hands raised to counter as I waited for Twitch to stand. Twitch rolled his legs back, then suddenly exploded forward, landing on his feet. Most people can't do that. The man must have strong abs. I was impressed. Twitch quickly said, "Best 2 out of 3? Did Twitch always speak fast? "Done," I said. Twitch whipped his black t-shirt over his head. Look at that body. I was right. He had lean and tight abs, just like the rest of his body. Cut pecs, hard biceps, chiseled ribs. Part of me took notice. This man had been doing karate for a while. I bet he only had 5% body fat. His arms were like coiled springs ready to pounce. The veins in his forearms wove a spiderweb among his muscles. And he was smooth. No chest hair, no ab hair, no little line of hair descending south. Only a little under his arms. My mind went naughty and wondered, how much of his body did he shave? Even down there? His eyes were sharp and golden brown, his hair flaxen gold, and the crisp half-smile he sported told me he enjoyed our sparring match as much as I did. Not to be outdone, I tossed my rainbow tie-dye shirt on my backpack. I didn't shave my body, so I had the classic smattering of hair around my navel, as well as down below. Twitch's eyes zoomed in on the rainbow mala bracelet I wore. He gave a slight nod and a slight half-grin. Was he gay too? As we traded blows and blocks and kicks and worked up a sweat, somebody must have called security because 2 men in university security uniforms showed up. "Is there a problem?" one of them asked. "We're just sparring," Twitch said, feinting to his left and throwing a jab. They looked at me, and as I blocked, I said, "We're just having fun." They didn't do anything but watch, and a minute later, moved on. At one point, as I was circling Twitch and looking for an opening, he asked, "Don't get me wrong, it's fun sparring with you, but why are we fighting?" "Just helping out a guy named Chaz. You looked pretty furious," I said. He nodded and said, "Chaz has that effect on people, but don't get your hopes up." Twitch threw a series of punches which I deflected, but he continued speaking. "Chaz is my frat bro, but he's a walking germ. He sleeps with anybody and everybody female. Emphasis on female. The man is straighter than a block of concrete. He dates somebody, then leaves them crying an hour later, and never looks back. A friend of mine just learned that she got an STD from the jerk and is now on antibiotics. Does Chaz care? No. He still sleeps with everybody. I want to beat him to a pulp. Good thing you got in the way before I did something I would have regretted." "So you're the dude who needed saving," I said, flirting a little. I can't believe I'm being so forward, and with a cute guy I don't know. We circled each other, lightly sparring, when Twitch said, "You know, I like my rescuers cute and sexy, like you." "What?" I said, letting my guard down. Twitch's outrageous flirt distracted me. "Would you regret it if I swept your heart away?" he said, dropped, and innocently swept my legs out from under me. I fell on my butt. The air rushed out of me with a smush. Twitch floored me like I was an amateur. "Sorry," he said, grinning, and he couldn't resist a little chuckle. "I should have seen that coming," I said. Twitch grinned and said, "I did say 2 out of 3, didn't I? Loser of round 3 has to surrender their phone number." I was right. Twitch was gay. After his flirt, what else should I expect? Before I could agree, my phone alarm rang. Damn, I liked this guy. "Time for class," I said. He gave me a hand up and said, "You owe me another round." We both paused, gave each other a little bow, and I picked up my shirt and my backpack with its precious cargo. However, Twitch said, "Let me carry that for you. Where's your class?" "3rd floor of the English building," I said. "I'm an English major working towards a creative writing degree. You?" "Computer science with a minor in engineering." "Next question," he said, as he pulled his shirt over his head, while somehow still holding my backpack. "What's your name?" "Neville," I said. "I'm impressed with the way you move," he said, his smile flirting just a little. "Are you a black belt?" "Brown," I said. "You?" "I test for my black in 2 months," he said. "My turn to ask you a question," I said. My heart beat fast. I can't believe I'm going to ask this, but the adrenaline from the sparring match pushed me past my fears. "Doing anything Saturday?" Twitch's smile momentarily went from ear to ear, and he said, "There's an MMA bout at the Capitol Arena. Want to go with me?" My smile matched his, and I said, "Isn't it too late for tickets?" "My friend Howard works there," he said. "Last question. Can I have your phone number?" I smiled, loving the way he spoke fast. I eagerly gave my phone number to him. It was an hour or so later. I was in the middle of class when my phone beeped with an incoming text. Damn, I forgot to put it on silent mode. Quickly, I silenced it and mumbled to the professor, "Sorry." Without looking at who it was or even reading it, I responded, "TLDR, can't text." That didn't stop whoever it was from sending novel after novel after novel of texts, all of which I ignored and forgot about. I couldn't wait to see Twitch again. When I got home from work about 9, I work at a pizza place that barely lets me afford tuition. I still live with my parents, but they usually don't interfere with my life. This time, Mom was waiting for me, and she interfered. "How come you didn't text your sister back?" I suddenly remembered the library of texts somebody had sent me earlier today. "Texting is not always possible," I said, opening the fridge to see what was left over. "She texted in the middle of my class, and I have a job with a no-phone policy. You can't roll pizza dough holding a phone." "Well, you could have called her when you were on the bus," Mom said. I sighed and said, "Give me a break. I've been on my feet since 6 this morning. I have a paper to proofread and print out, and it's due tomorrow, and 50 pages to read by tomorrow as well. Then I sleep 5 hours if I'm lucky, and have to catch the bus at 6 tomorrow morning." Mom harumphed, obviously giving up her current argument and starting another, and she said, "You need to show some empathy towards your sister. Raising 3 little girls is not easy." I stared at Mom and said, "No, she needs to show some empathy to me. I babysat last weekend and the weekend before and the one before. Did she pay me? No. Did she at least buy me a pizza for my trouble? No. Does she care about my schedule? No. Does she expect me to feed her girls and foot the bill? Yes. I'm not babysitting this weekend, and if she dumps the kids off, you and Dad can take care of them. I have plans." "Don't be so insensitive," Mom said, raising her voice a little. "Is it so hard for you to understand that she needs a break? Besides, your dad and I are going on an overnight trip. Bernini Casino is doing their 80s festival, and you know we never miss it. And would it hurt you to clean your room? It smells like dirty socks." "Lay off me, Mom," I said. "I'll be gone too. I have a date, so tell Sis to stop being cheap and hire someone." "A date?" "You're lying," Mom said, but her eyes widened a little. A tiny sparkle of joy flickered in her eyes. "You never go on dates." "Not recently, and that's because Sis always makes me babysit," I said, and gave Mom a gentle kiss on her forehead. I'm a little taller than she is. I guess I was in a talking mood, because I started explaining. "His name is Twitch, and he's really cute, and he's a brown belt just like me." And I told Mom all the details of the afternoon. I expected her to continue yelling at me, but she didn't. She squealed and ran into the other room where my dad was, and she loudly yelled, "Our baby has a date." You'd think she'd been told she just won the lottery or something. Mom sent a text to my sister announcing my date. "Neville, you have a real date with a real person?" Dad said. "Don't be weird, guys. I've had lots of dates," I said. "Well," Mom said, "it's been a while." Dad shook his head, got up from his chair, and walked outside. A moment later, his car drove away. Not the reaction I expected, but at least nobody was shouting. Best to take the win. Who would have thought? Me going on a date would make Mom celebrate like it was Christmas, but I couldn't figure out what Dad was thinking. A little later, while Mom was in the kitchen making brownies and humming, Dad found me in my messy room. He shyly carried a small sack with a drugstore emblem on it. "I got you something," he said. What did I say about Christmas? Dad was bearing gifts? Wasn't it the end of January? Dad sat on my bed, careful to move my textbooks and comics over, and he said, "Can we talk? I told your mom we needed a little father-son time." I sat up, weirded out, and carefully shifting my pack and everything else into a pile at the foot of my bed. "Sure, Dad. We haven't really, talked for a long time." Dad nodded, as if thinking of the best way to proceed. He finally said, "I know we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things." "Comics and writing," I said, cautiously. "Yep," he said, but emotion broke his voice. "Maybe we never will, but I want you to know that we're still family, and I love you. I know you're gay, and it took a couple of years to accept that, but I'm okay with it now." "What's this about, Dad?" I asked. Dad reached into the small sack and handed me a box of black diamond bearskin raw condoms and a small tube of Simply Silk for men's sensual lubricant, the expensive kind of adult fun. The moment went from weird to seriously awkward. I think I blushed so bad I'm sure it looked like I had a sunburn. "I've never asked if you're active," Dad continued. "Maybe I didn't want to accept you had grown up. But I guess I need to accept you for the man you're becoming. We disagree a lot, but I'm proud of that man. I love you." I nodded. Dad never said stuff like this. The moment had become even more awkward. "You know how to use these, right?" Dad said. I opened the small box and pulled out a small, flat, square, black, shiny package and confessed, "I've had other boyfriends, Dad." A small grunt escaped his lips and then a smaller smile. I suppose I already knew that, but just hadn't thought it through. "If you have any questions, I'm always here. I only want you to be safe so we can keep disagreeing about your future for years to come. I want you to tell your mom and me all about your date for Sunday lunch." "Most of our date anyway," I said, smiling. The awkwardness had passed. Dad returned my smile and said, "I think there are parts that your parents don't want to hear. A word of advice, clean your room, because you never know what could happen." We hugged, and then he went back to the television. A little while later, Mom brought me fresh brownies. I told you my parents were weird. Twitch and I texted several times before Saturday and even had coffee together. He drove over about 4:30 early Saturday evening, but Mom got to the door before me. She had teased out her hair into some 80s fashion and wore a metallic blue sequin dress with shoulder pads and sported more makeup than I had ever seen her wear. Dad was in some skinny black suit with a really skinny tie, and Mom had styled his hair like something out of an old magazine. I love my parents, but they are a little weird. "So you're Twitch," Mom said, the second the door opened. She gave him a broad smile. Why did I want to crawl under the sofa? My heart entered the instant lust zone. Twitch must have spent an hour in front of the mirror to make sure he looked just delicious. A sleeveless red t-shirt that was tight about his pecs, black jeans, and black Doc Martens. He wore a thin sterling silver necklace and wore 2 small silver hoops in his right ear. Suddenly, I felt underdressed. Was it wrong of me to want to undress him? Wow, he was sexy. "Yes, ma'am," Twitch said. "My real name is Rob, but the guys at the frat call me Twitch because I'm a little hyper and I speak fast all the time." "Well," Dad said, shaking Twitch's hand, "it's a pleasure to meet you. I hope you have fun with your MMA thing." "My buddy got us some tickets, and for a discount, too," Twitch said. Mom leaned over and kissed me, and while she wiped her lipstick off my cheek, she said, "Leftover pizza and chicken wings are in the fridge, and a couple bottles of Coca-Cola. Help yourselves when you get back." Twitch and I went out to dinner. Since he bought the tickets, I paid for dinner. Burgers and fries, and we shared a grasshopper shake from Mildred's Diner. The Capitol Arena is located a couple of blocks off the Vegas Strip. Depending on the season, they have it set up for all kinds of events. Basketball, hockey, concerts, boxing, and even tonight's MMA fight. His friend, Howard, was wearing a headset and waiting for us just outside the main doors. They gave each other a quick bro hug, then Twitch introduced me. Howard was a big guy, and from what Twitch told me, he's also a boxer. "Twitch, keep a lookout for Hutch and Jason. They have seats next to yours." Twitch turned to me and said, "They're frat bros like us, and they make a cute couple." "Ignore all the cameras," Howard said, taking us on the tour. "The fight is a live pay-for-view show that will be edited for a later cable broadcast. It will seem a little weird, but before the bout starts, we will be taking several camera shots of the crowd. Commentators will be talking about the fighters, and some people will be doing crowd interviews that will be spiced into the live feed when things slow down. Not to mention the kiss cams. The audience loves those. We'll also be filming the fighters' grand entrance a couple of times to make sure we get it right, and we'll use the best." "Why all the advanced filming?" I asked. "Isn't this live?" "Filler for the downtimes," he said. "Like when we get the cage ready for the next bout, or we have to wait on somebody for some reason, or when we have technical difficulties. No matter how well we prepare, there is always something that goes wrong. That's why we have the girls in sexy costumes and the muscle guys wearing sleeveless shirts standing guard. Nothing like eye candy to distract the viewers." "Are you telling us that the fight is all show?" Twitch asked. "Outside of the fights," Howard said. "Yes, it's television, so what do you expect? When we get to the fights, there is nothing fake about it. The fighters' only rule is to go easy on each other for the first few minutes. After that, they can get serious about destruction, and if you've seen any MMA fight, they do get serious." "Why go easy at the beginning?" I asked. Howard led us into the building and down into the arena. Practical reasons? You need to realize that nothing is choreographed or pre-planned. Most of the time, the fighters have barely met each other back in the green room. They need to get to know each other's fighting styles, take their opponent's measure, save their endurance because they might need it for later. Think of it as light sparring or practice. Besides, quick fights and instant knockouts might be fun to talk about, but they're boring as hell to watch. Drag out the opening a little, create a little drama. People get invested in the fighters, and instead of watching two sweaty guys roll about, you have a battle that people care about. And best of all, it's real. Do you want to come see the cage? Howard showed us around and led us inside the cage. Give me your phones and make like MMA stars, Howard said. We tossed him our phones and Twitch yelled at me, "We're still at 2 out of 3. Seconds later, we had left our shirts on the ground and were sparring. Howard filmed us. As long as we were with Howard, we had backstage access to the green room, took selfies everywhere, and we even took selfies with some of tonight's MMA fighters. Best date ever. Our seats were on the 10th row, with a great view of the giant monitors that would zoom in on the fighters or the crowd. The crowd trickled in until finally the entire auditorium was filled. Howard looked at his phone. "Hutch and Jason are here. Be right back." Howard led 2 guys over to our seats. One was a big surfer who wore a tie-dyed t-shirt with the sleeves ripped off. The other was a little less buff, but moved like a dancer. Hutch and Jason had arrived. After introductions, we gave each other bro hugs and took our seats, and then Howard had to leave to take care of something. Wandering cameramen filmed many crowd shots they would include later in the broadcast, including several of us cheering, and a couple of everybody booing, and several close-up shots of the girls carrying signs saying, "Round 1," or "Go Wild," or "The overly muscled bouncers looking mean." I can't believe how much fun I was having. 5 minutes before the first fight, loud, classic rock music played. The fighters entered with a lot of fanfaring and cheering. Then everything backed up, and they did it again. And then they did it again. They took close-ups of the fighters. Finally, the producer must have been satisfied, and the first bout started. Howard had been right. All was show before the match, and suddenly, it was real guys fighting. At first, it was light sparring, and then it became no holds barred. The sweat, the blood, the punches, the grunts, the groans of pain, all were real. We cheered, we screamed. When somebody got pinned, we yelled like crazy. My phone rang. I could barely hear it. Why would my sister be calling? I was so excited that I actually answered it. "Hello," I shouted. "Look, look, look," Hutch shouted as one of the fighters threw the other to the mat. My sister said something. "I can't hear you," I yelled. She yelled something that might have been, "Where are you?" "Capitol Arena," I shouted, hoping I answered the right question. A cheer went up, and I screamed along with the crowd. My sister tried to say something, but I only heard, "We're supposed to—" "Can't hear you," I yelled, and the crowd went wild over some move I missed. "Call you tomorrow or Monday," and I hung up. The night was beyond fun. High energy screaming and shouting, and sometime between bouts, while they were setting up the cage for the next match, Hutch yelled, "Bro, look at the sexy guys on the monitors." Both Twitch and I looked. A camera had zoomed in on Twitch and me, with a pulsating heart around us. We'd been kiss-cammed. "Bro, give us a show," Hutch yelled. And Jason yelled, "Channel your inner Chaz." And Hutch yelled, "Here comes the tongue." Tonight, I was too hyped up on life to be shy. I smiled at Twitch, he shrugged, and I plastered my lips to his. Definitely not my best kiss, but it might be my most fun kiss. Twitch responded by going all out. I gasped as his tongue ran across my lips and briefly met my tongue. Who says tongues can't get in on the MMA wrestling action? Quick and fast, the passion was there. He pulled me close and we let our mouths play. It wasn't the cutesy peck on the cheek you give your favorite aunt, but the kind of down and dirty real-life kiss from a porno. My hand drifted to Twitch's tight, amazing abs and caressed them through his shirt. His hands plied my back and one drifted down south. Way down south. "You can let go of each other now," Jason yelled, and the crowd around us laughed. Slowly we released each other, but the taste of Twitch's mouth made me lust for more. With his thumb, he wiped his mouth and tried to fight the smile, but couldn't. Jason was right. The kiss cam had moved on, and the four of us shared a chuckle. Had it only been a 3-second kiss? Hot damn, it felt like we could kiss forever. Breathing heavy, Twitch whispered, "Want to try that again? Say, somewhere a little more private?" In answer, I picked up his hand and kissed it and said, "Hell yeah, my parents won't be back until tomorrow." "Good. My roommate Albrecht studies all the time, so the frat house is out," he said. "Do you want to come over tonight?" I asked. What had I just said? Had I ever been this bold before? Something about Twitch made it so I couldn't stop wanting him. Our hands found each other, and he leaned into my ear and whispered, "We'll pick up a couple bottles of wine on the way." Shortly thereafter, the main bout began. 2 fighters evenly matched. The bout was wild, and the audience loved it, but I was impatient to be alone with Twitch. I wanted him more than I had ever wanted anybody. We stopped for Chinese takeout on the way to my place. Fortunately, the house was dark. My parents were still at their 80s festival. "Upstairs, first door on the right," I said, as I headed into the kitchen. I found a couple of wine glasses, some plates for the Chinese food, and poured some ice into a tall pan so we could chill the wine. Then I remembered the state of my room. I hate it when my parents are right. I hadn't made my bed. The dirty clothes littered the floor, and my new comic still lay on the bed, in full view. Think classic bachelor slob chic. Oh no. What would Twitch think of the condoms and the lube on the nightstand? My room could be the next disaster movie. When I entered my bedroom, Twitch sat on my rumpled, messy bed, thumbing through one of the comics. Oh crap. What would he think of somebody in college collecting comics? I'm 21 years old. My folks didn't approve, called it a waste of money, and that it was something for kids. Would Twitch think me a dork? Think me immature? And my room, it was a mess. The open box of condoms on my nightstand was next to the lube my dad had bought me. Twitch held the variant cover with Kid Condor on it. I set the bottles of champagne down and stuffed my dirty clothes into the closet. Well, most of them. And I mumbled, "Sorry." "You should see my dorm room," Twitch said. "Worse yet, you should see Hutch and Jason's room. Dance things everywhere, surfboard on the wall. Ever since Jason was shot, he now believes that life is too short to worry about cleaning. Albrecht, on the other hand, will drive me crazy. He not only makes his bed and dusts every day, but he cleans the bathroom every morning. He's obsessive-compulsively neat. We've literally divided our room in half. He doesn't touch my side, I don't touch his." "Jason was shot?" I asked. "Did they catch the guy?" "Long story, but they did," Twitch said. "Something you should know about me. I'm not Chaz. God, that guy drives me insane. He is as fray as you can get. I'm not." "Fray? What's that?" I asked. "You've never heard of fraysexual?" Twitch asked. "I bet you met a lot of them. Think of the movies. Classic frat boys who sleep with anyone. They are just the opposite of demis. They only like having sex with strangers, and the moment they get to know more than a first name, they lose interest." I sat on the bed next to Twitch and thought about my lack of a serious social life. I finally said, "I guess I'm more demi. I like to get to know people. Me too, Twitch said. He set the comic down. So you like Kid Condor too? I don't think he originally was gay, but the editors in charge changed things. I usually don't buy individual issues, but wait until the collections come out. What did you think about Kid Condor's boyfriend getting kidnapped by the Gad? How about that? Twitch read comics too. I smiled and pulled the rest of the comics from my backpack. We laid on the bed, reading the latest issues together. Right after Kid Condor's romantic kiss in front of the Eiffel Tower, we closed the comic and had our own romantic kiss. It wasn't long before our clothes joined the other clothes on the floor. Kid Condor's kiss lasted only one panel of one page. Ours lasted all night, and then some. Thank you, Dad. Your gifts came in handy. Twitch and I woke about noon, softly talking about everything and nothing. The TV played somewhere, so my parents were back home, with Twitch's car out front and my door closed. I suspect they knew what had happened last night and had been diplomatic enough to leave us alone. My parents are weird, but sometimes they can be pretty cool. Hungry? Twitch asked. Starving, I said, but didn't let that stop me from stealing another kiss. A long kiss. A very, very long kiss. Didn't your mom say you had leftover pizza and Coca-Colas? Twitch asked, nibbling on my ear. Somewhere in the distance, I thought I heard Mom say, I wouldn't do that, honey. What had Dad done now? Dad's voice carried above the television. Sit down, young lady, and that's an order. Young lady? Dad and Mom had called my sister that when she got caught doing something wrong. Was my sister here? I want answers, my sister yelled. Why don't we wait a few minutes before going to the kitchen? I asked. Twitch gave me a fake look of horror and said, What will we ever do? Twitch and I were lightly kissing and lightly talking when loud footsteps sounded from the hall. My door barged open. Note to self, get a lock. My sister screamed, Do you have to be so selfish? Me and my girlfriends couldn't go out drinking because I couldn't find you to babysit. What were you doing that was more important than me? Then she stopped, suddenly aware of what she barged in on. Her eyes focused on the clothes on the floor, then on the condoms on the nightstand, then on Twitch, then on me. Twitch looked at me. I looked at him. Good thing the blanket was pulled up. Did I keep you from something last night? Twitch asked. I kissed him and said, My only plans were with you, babe. My sister hadn't moved, and she had the dumbest look on her face, and she yelled, Mom, Dad, who's this strange man in the house? That's Twitch, honey, Neville's boyfriend, Mom said, appearing in the doorway. She kept her head down so as not to say too much. Did you two have fun at the fight? Sure did, Twitch and I both said at once. Dad appeared behind Mom. He said, Hope you're not vegetarian, Twitch, because we've got some porterhouse grass-fed steaks on the barbecue. So you two hurry and shower and get dressed. Can come and eat. Can't wait, Twitch said. Mom, Dad, how come you're not freaked out? I asked. Dad gave me a guilty smile and shrugged. Mom simply said, We're an old married couple. You can't shock us. I like your family, Twitch said. Steaks for breakfast and intelligent people for parents. Thank you for the compliment, Mom said. But you do know it's lunchtime, right? My sister still stared at Twitch and me. Mom let her out, and Dad closed the door. As they walked down the hall, I heard Mom say, How do you expect your brother to have a social life when you keep imposing on him? Young lady, time for you to grow up and hire a babysitter. Twitch and I climbed out of bed. Twitch turned to me and said, "Did your mom just call me your boyfriend?" "Is that okay?" I said. He gave me a devilish grin and said, "There's another MMA fight next weekend. Then afterwards, let's go hot tubbing at the frat house, and we'll see if we can get Albrecht to study somewhere else." Epilogue. For the next year, Twitch lived at the frat house while I stayed with Mom and Dad. That is, when I wasn't living with him at the frat house, or he was living with me at my folks' place. When he took his black belt test, his sensei let me be one of his combatants. He was one of mine. After he graduated, we got an apartment together. We also were regulars at the Vegas MMA World, and thanks to Howard, we bought season tickets at a discount. With Twitch's help, and a little technical guidance from Albrecht, I started my own online comic. About a year after that, Howard was our best man, and I think the entire frat turned up at our reception. As we cut the cake, all the frat boys yelled, "Frat boys, frat boys, frat boys." Right after the cake cutting, Mom walked over to us, her face slightly red with emotion. She kissed Twitch, and while she quickly wiped her lipstick off his cheek, she said, "I still can't believe you're honeymooning in Paris. Before you two leave, let's have a barbecue. Welcome to our family, Twitch." Dad handed us a small box wrapped in wedding white and silver. The exact size and shape of the box he gave me a couple years ago, right before the MMA match. He winked at me, wiping a tear from his eye, and said, "Nothing but the best for my boys." I leaned over, hugged him close, and whispered, "Don't worry, Dad. I know how to use these." He then handed me a comic wrapped in a clear plastic cover with a backing board to help it keep its shape. Dad had professionally printed out the first 24 pages of my online comic and had them bound so it looked like a real comic book. "I'm proud of you, both of you," he said. I couldn't help but cry as Dad took Twitch to the dance floor and danced with my husband. Life had become impossibly, amazingly, incredibly beautiful. The end. I'm Gio, writer and reader of this, the latest FratBoy tale. I hope you enjoyed. The Frat Boys will be back, but I have to write it first. If you enjoyed this story about love between men, I invite you to subscribe to my channel because I have a few more stories you might enjoy, like Cute Crazy or Uptown, or even the previous FratBoy story, Last Ride of the Night. Links are in the description below. And if you want to catch up with Anders, Dane, Hutch, Jason, Ben, Niles, Grin, Albrecht, Finn, DJ, Solomon, Chaz, Howard, Twitch, David, William, and all the rest of the Frat Boys, there is a playlist, and that link is also at the end of the video, and in the description below. That reminds me, Grandma Suki says hi. As of putting this story together, my little channel has grown up. It has reached 600 subscribers. Thank you to everybody for giving my channel a chance. You have no idea the depth of my gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I wish all of you a bit of love and a lot of romance in your lives. Join me next Wednesday and every Wednesday for another adventure about two guys falling in love. Peace.